And believe you me, it's not short on action. It's not short on danger.
I could have held the elevator, sir.
And it's not short on romance.
Bruce Thorpe, United States Secret Service.
Okay. And I suppose that's your gun, huh?
Oh, no, I wear a shoulder holster.
It's not short on excitement either. All kinds of excitement.
Not bad.
And you better believe it's not short on laughs.
I'm gonna miss you too.
No time for pygmy perversions. Seek higher.
You will cooperate or I'll blow your brains out.
If you haven't already guessed, it'll be out shortly. Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, and 150 of Hollywood's smallest stars in Under the Rainbow, a giant comedy. Coming from Orion Pictures.
What an interesting hotel.
There you go. And whose voice was that we heard at the very end, DJ?
Oh, the very delicious and dulcet tones of Miss Eve Arden.
Indeedy do. Who else do we got starring in this sucker?
Well, of course, we have Mr. Chevy Chase, and we have Carrie Fisher, and we also have another 80s celebrity, although you may not know him by name, but later on he was in films such as Funny Farm. He was also in Sister Act, Mars Attacks, and In and Out. This is an Irish-born actor named Joseph, I'm going to say Mayer, and
something like that.
Yes, and he also starred in one of my favorite films of the 80s, My Stepmother is an Alien, with another Saturday Night Live alumni, Dan Aykroyd.
That's right.
So this is actually only one of the films that Mr. Mayer starred in with Chevy Chase. Funny Farm was another, so it was the warm-up act, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And he's a character actor. If you saw him, you'd know him right away. And he was good in this role. And Eve Arden was a lot of fun as his wife. And they're both very eccentric characters. Also, of course, Billy Barty, who has been around for years and years, heads up the cast of The Little People, and he portrays a villain in this movie. And he is basically an agent acting on behalf of the Nazis, and he's a spy in the U.S. of A. And he's after the MacGuffin of the movie, which is a map of some kind. It's like something North American defense system, and it's something that Hitler wants, and it ends up in the lap of Carrie Fisher, quite by accident.
It's just so fun to watch this film, because in that period of the 80s, there were several films that had roles for little persons. And the great thing about it, it was almost a period of time where things were changing. People were being cast for roles not because of their body type or, the fact that they were a little person, but you get all these movies that are breaking out of that mold of being an oddball, and you get things like Time Bandits, and then you get Willow, and sure, there are little people playing those roles, but those characters could be played by anyone, and it's just amazing, how much their community gets woven into these films just as being part of the story.
Mm-hmm. Another super famous character actor who has the role of a villain is the actor who named himself Mako, and he is a Japanese-born actor who has been in the United States for, I think, since he was a kid. and wound up playing just tons and tons of characters in movies and television. And again, he's an actor. If you saw him, you would recognize him instantly. Billy, you know what we should do? Let's set the stage for the world in 1981 when this movie came out and give us a feel of what was going on and who are the celebrities and what were the other movies that were going on here. Take it away.
Alrighty. So in 1981, uh, what happened in the world at that time was the release of 52 American hostages in Iran was negotiated. And President Reagan is often credited, but I do believe it was actually Carter that negotiated this. Ronald Reagan is sworn in as the 40th U.S. president. Also, Walter Cronkite signed off of CBS after 19 years on television. The voice of the space program and evening news for many years, and many people still associate him with the history of news. You also have the Space Shuttle Columbia was the first successful space shuttle launch. The Los Angeles Centers for Disease Control first reported early cases of what would later become known as AIDS, immunodeficiency syndrome. And then Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman nominated by the U.S. Supreme Court and later was confirmed. Nintendo first releases Donkey Kong with Mario at arcades.
Yay!
Yes. And then just a few other notes here. Mark David Chapman is sentenced to 20 years of prison after murdering Beatles singer and songwriter John Lennon. And then we have the first American test tube baby. So the first child conceived through modern medicine. Elizabeth Jordan Carr was born in Norfolk, Virginia in 1981.
Oh, God. Jeepers Creepers. So she's like 45 years, 48 years old now or something. Oh, God.
Yeah. So, also, aside from what was going on in the world, just to put things into perspective, some of the stars of today's age that came into the world in 1981
Oh, good Lord. Here we go.
were pop star, singer, songwriter Justin Timberlake.
Oh.
We also have pop star, singer, songwriter Beyonce Knowles,
Well,
now known as Beyonce. And of course, queen of the wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl. There, we've got the young star of Home Improvement with Tim Allen. He played one of the sons, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
oh, yeah.
And then a couple others. We have the child star from the Gilmore Girls, Alexis Bledel. She played the daughter of Rory. And then lastly, but certainly not least, pop star, singer, songwriter Britney Spears.
Woo, woo, woo.
And I bet you Matt's dancing on his side there now.
I don't know. I can't remember if he's a Britney Spears fan. So what about in the movies? What was coming out around the same time?
Oh, goodness. 1981 was a bang up year for movies. I mean, you're ending the 70s where there was a gas shortage and we were changing our relations with the Middle East and we were going into a more conservative economy. So there were 113 films that premiered in 1981. And among those included many famous now films, including Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I do believe may have been one of Harrison Ford's first films after Star Wars. You also have On Golden Pond, which of course starred Katharine Hepburn in one of her later roles, as well as I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her co-star's name in that film.
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda's father, in which it also starred Jane Fonda as well.
Right.
And just a handful more here. We've got a James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only. I think that may have been one of the Roger Moore films. Then there's The Four Seasons, which starred one of my favorite TV actresses, Carol Burnett. And the aforementioned film with Little Person, Time Bandits, which I believe was a British film. You've also got The Great Muppet Caper with the talents of Jim Henson. You have The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin.
Good Lord.
And then lastly, but certainly not leastly, Mommy Dearest.
Holy cow, what a year for movies.
Yes, I mean, if they had Movie Pass back then, I would have cashed in.
And can we say pretty safely, DJ, that Under the Rainbow, in the midst of all these other movies, kind of came and went?
Oh, yes, most definitely here. Now, I'm looking at a chart at the top movies from 1981, and let me just tell you where Under the Rainbow placed here.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Oh, while you're looking for that info, I can tell you that it cost $18 million to make, and the box office for it was just barely over what it cost to make.
Well, certainly it's no surprise that Raiders of the Lost Ark was the #1 film that year. It made over 220. No, I'm thinking it made like something like $250,000, which was huge in 1981. And some of the other films that I mentioned are lower on the list, but I will just say that while Under the Rainbow is fairly low, it's number 40. It got beat out by Mommy Dearest and The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Yes. Yes. So let's just say it didn't leave quite an impact, although I was surprised. The New York Times had actually a positive review of it.
Oh,
I won't read it now, but I found it archived somewhere, and whoever it was that wrote it in the New York Times, of all people, it wasn't a bad review.
they must have been a Carrie Fisher fan, I would think.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. It was directed by a guy named Stephen Rash. How about that for a name?
Oh, goodness.
And I would have to say, DJ, that perhaps, just perhaps, one of the reasons this movie is so bad is this director. I tried to find out so hard, DJ, why this guy was the director, and I couldn't find out why. Because really, what he was up to before and after mostly was doing videos for musicians. He loved music, and that was his thing. And he did documentaries of music acts and produced them for television. Somehow the guy had a hand in what basically launched MTV, although he didn't have a part in MTV when it started. What he was doing at the time, which was making music videos, influenced and started MTV. But a director of movies that have a script and stuff, I don't know why they got him. But I got to tell you, I was watching this movie, and the direction and the editing is so horrible that there is like a mile of film footage at the end of a punchline, and then what happens next. It's like it's so horribly edited that it slows the whole thing down. Where the director chose to start the next scene, and how he set it up, and how he, let the jokes fly. It's just so terribly done. It's just awful. And maybe another reason why the movie wasn't that great is that there are about 1 million writers. Never a good sign.
Well,
There was
this is one of those movies that you almost love to hate because there's a little something of everything in it for everyone. And I just find it fun to watch the Duke and Duchess throughout the scenes because you know that these actors have played much bigger roles. But as they say, you know, when they did this movie, I can get the sense that they probably had fun stepping out of their comfort zone and playing silly people.
yeah, I imagine they, Eve Arden, probably had more experience than anyone, and certainly her co-star as playing her husband, the Duke, and you know, Chevy Chase, this upstart, and Carrie Fisher. You know, here's what I. Here's one of the things that any movie that has Carrie Fisher in it, this is what I'd do. Now, I didn't know this at the time, and I don't think anyone did, but Carrie Fisher was very candid about her drug use when she became an author and wrote several books that were semi-autobiographical. And I guess she was, even before she got into movies, she was appearing at parties and celebrity parties in Hollywood because her mother was very famous. Debbie Reynolds. So she was partying in the Hollywood circuit before she was in any movie. And, I'm sure it would come to no surprise that at these parties there was a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs. So when I watch a movie with Carrie Fisher, I try to watch her and try to figure out, was she stoned or out of her mind, drugged out when she was in that scene. Now, all I gotta say is she must have been damn good at hiding it, because all I could say is I've never caught her in a scene where she looks like she's bombed out of her mind. And she will tell you that a lot of times she was, and she has absolutely no memory of a lot of things because she was high. But I don't see it. I mean, have you ever? I mean, I just don't see her. She looks perfectly normal in every scene.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And perhaps maybe if she didn't have as many personal demons, her career might have gone a different direction. Certainly, she had a presence in the projects that she was in. So she has a dedicated following, and I am hard pressed. I've been wanting to watch the documentary that was made the other year before she passed. It was of her and her mother and their day-to-day life, which in real life they were neighbors. They lived next to each other, and this documentary came out, I think, right around the time that she had passed away, and a lot of people said it was a tearful watch. So I'm considering watching it, but it just is going to be hard for me. But getting back to the director, Toppie, you were saying that Steve Rash didn't do much really in terms of consistency, and I would just like to say that if anybody needs another example of another film that he did, well, you were saying that he had a hand in part of MTV. One of the later movies that he did starred one of MTV's own personalities, Pauly Shore. In 1993, Steve Rash did Son-in-Law.
Yeah.
A fairly forgettable movie, but if you're in the right mood, I suppose it'll pass the time.
Right. DJ, let's play clip number 2. Let's forget clip number 1 and go right to clip 2.
Okay.
So what do you think? Isn't it great? You like it?
It's amazing. It looks just like the sketches.
To the camera, it looks like a real mansion.
Special effects cost me $5,000. Probably saved me $100. Thanks a lot. Great. It's going to be a fine film. We're starting a new picture next week, and I'm anticipating a few small problems. Annie, you're perfect for it. I'm making you special talent coordinator on this, The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz? But that's already been cast.
Now, you're not listening. I said special coordinator.
Well, what's a special talent coordinator?
Honey, this weekend I'm bringing in 150 special extras from all over the world. The biggest bunch of them is going to arrive by train this Sunday. Now, some of them have to be ready to work first thing Monday morning. So you'll probably have to stay up all night to get them through makeup, hair, and wardrobe.
If I have to work all night, I'm not sure I want this promotion.
Hey, you do this thing for me, and you're going to get that raise I promised you.
You promised?
Of course. Oh, and I need a dog.
A dog?
A funny dog.
And there you go. That's part of Carrie Fisher's playing the kind of the maven who has to collect all these little people together. And speaking of dogs, DJ, how many dogs die in this movie?
I think there was at least 3, maybe 4.
I think so. It's supposed to be funny, but it wasn't.
I think perhaps maybe in a time when little persons were cast in more circus type roles, we had a different sense of humor. So, and you know, they may have tolerated slightly more animal cruelty in those days. But you know, just remember, this is the era of just say no.
Yeah. No. Matthew in the chat room is saying, "Oh no, he'll never watch this. None of the deaths occur on camera, and the running gag is that the Duke and this Duchess have a dog, and the Duchess is blind, and the poor dogs keep accidentally dying, and the Duke keeps replacing them with a different dog so that she never knows." So that's the whole gag, but none of it is ever seen. It's just implied.
Right.
And but it still falls kind of flat. But if you watch this movie, you would know, you would not see anything that happened to the poor dog.
And some of the humor that's used in this film is sort of racist and stereotyped, just as you know they have the little persons in the cast.
That's right.
Horrible.
Matt just said, making fun of blind people. Oh, Matthew, this movie makes fun of stereotypes. Japanese people, little people. What else?
Nobody is safe in this film.
Yeah. Unintentionally funny, because with today's eyes, we watch it and we go, "Oh my lordy McLord, Lord." Man asked, was there any implication of a gay character?
You know, I don't know that I recognized any gay characters in this.
I don't either.
Certainly, there was a lot of chauvinism because you have a scene in the hotel where the Duchess, played by Eve Arden, is talking to one of the actors, the little persons, and it's an older gentleman who's got a receding hairline, and she thinks that this is just a little boy. So she's talking to him as if he's a little boy because she can't hardly see. And she says, "Don't worry, when you grow up, you'll have lots of nice curls." And he takes the opportunity to cop a feel.
Yes. Let's just say that little people are not portrayed in this movie with any sense of kindness, decency. Basically, they're presented as all being partying, alcoholic, raging, whack jobs.
Right. Now, to be fair, though, I don't think that the story had to have little people, you know, in order to do that. They conveniently wove this into the idea that these folks were all starring in The Wizard of Oz, but you could have easily had this have been any movie, and the hotel got destroyed by the cast.
Right. But one of the things the movie relies on heavily, I mean heavily, is look at the little people running. Aren't they funny?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, wow, once or twice maybe, but this part of the comedy of this whole movie relies on look at all these little people running. And it's just wacky.
Now, the interesting thing is, though, that while we have double standards, because of course the little persons in this movie are playing characters that would have originated back, in the late 30s at the beginning of World War II. This is being portrayed almost 50 years later in the modern day. And here you have Billy Barty, who's playing the Nazi spy. And one of the things that's important about Mr. Barty is that he was a staunch Mormon. He was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, but he was also a philanthropist, and he founded the Little People of America Association, which is important because that is an organization that has brought persons together to fight for their rights of being equal. And it's an organization that still exists to this day. So while in the beginnings of his career, he was playing all those stereotypes that he later on fought to keep his community from being associated with, he was paying the bills, was his argument at the time.
Yes. Well, that was paramount to support his family, and that's what all of the actors in this movie were doing themselves, is that it was a paycheck, and so they did it. And that's life. So
Right. And, at the beginning of the program, Gertie mentioned that Carrie Fisher said this is one of the worst films that she'd ever done. She's not the only person. Chevy Chase also went on record as saying that this was a pretty bad film. And, speaking of community in the association with little persons, Jerry Marin, who starred in this film, he had sort of a cameo role, as a lot of the little persons did that were supposed to have been in The Wizard of Oz, because he actually was in the Wizard of Oz film in 1939. He was one of the Munchkins in the Emerald City. He actually had an uncredited role, and a lot of the people that were part of the cast for Under the Rainbow, a lot of the little persons looked to him because he was sort of the tie-in, the legend, how they got to be there, because this man had been in The Wizard of Oz before. Now, in later years, though, he sort of regretted having been in this movie because everybody said it was terrible. But if you're looking for somebody from history, there's a scene in the kitchen in the hotel, and the man who is playing with a baseball bat,
yeah, that's him,
played by Jerry Marin, who, well, as I said, was in the original Wizard of Oz, just as a small role, though, as a Munchkin. He may have even been a child at the time. And Billy in the chat room, my dear sweet husband, reminded me of a good point. The hotel that they used actually was historically the hotel that the cast from Wizard of Oz stayed in when that film was made. And I do believe it was called the Culver Hotel, just as it was in the beginning of the film, before the uncle walked away and the nephew took over. Then the banner came down, the Rainbow Hotel.
Right. And who played the nephew?
Oh, goodness. Let me dig.
Yeah, no, I could tell you it was Alan Arkin.
Oh.
Wait a minute. Who was the father and who was the son?
Well, let's take a peek here.
Famous actor, and then his son was an actor too, and his son was on Chicago Hope. and he was in Halloween H2O. Alan Arkin and God damn it, Alan Alda. No,
I'm seeing Adam and
Adam.
Yes, Adam Arkin.
Yes, and he has a fairly major role as the guy that is not owns the hotel, but is running the hotel, and he has to sadly deal with all of the crazy slapstick moments of the movie. And by the way, it is filled with slapstick comedy, and I love slapstick comedy. And I was a bit surprised at how few of the slapstick gags worked.
Mhm.
Kind of didn't make me laugh. I'm not, and again, I attribute that mostly to the director and the editing, which just didn't. They just didn't have any sense of timing at all.
I mean, the majority of the main cast are people who went on to do bigger and better things. It's just an interesting film to watch to see the pairings of some of them. Because, how many films do you see Carrie Fisher and Chevy Chase in together? This is probably the only one. Of course, it may be the reason why it's the only one.
Yeah. By the way, how did you think they were together on screen?
I think that some of Chevy Chase's roles in that period were somewhat cookie cutter. I mean, he's playing sort of a detective kind of character.
Mhm.
He's on protection duty, a very similar role to the one he played later in the Fletch films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually thought the chemistry between them, I could see in another movie,
Mhm.
uh, Carrie Fisher and Chevy Chase doing much better with better material. So I thought their pairing and the chemistry between them was good. I've heard others say differently, but I liked when they were on screen together. And did you notice they're not on screen together very much?
Right? I mean, for somebody who's on a protection duty, they don't share the screen. Of course, she's there for her work and so is he, but, for being the main stars of the film, I wonder how much they were on set at the same time.
Yeah, not much. And part of the movie is supposed to be a romance that develops between them. But because they're on screen together so little, it just fizzles. It never really blossoms, and you never really feel anything for it. So again, just you know, the movie would have been way more interesting if they had spent more time on their characters,
Mhm.
but they didn't.
Now, did you happen to notice, Toppy, the way that this film starts off and how it finishes? Did it vaguely resemble another film from the era that Wizard of Oz was out?
The way it started and finished.
Oh, actually, I may have just given you the answer.
Well, yeah, you wanna clarify that because I understand what you just asked, but
Okay. Well,
yeah.
in the beginning of the film, you have most of the main actors being introduced, but in sort of forgettable everyday people. They're at a kind of a Dust Bowl town, and this group of people are getting together around the radio because the president is making an announcement. And you are introduced to one of the first little persons that you see in the movie, a character named Rollo. And he's got an ambition to become a movie star, but you actually see several of the actors that are playing the main roles before those characters are introduced. So you have Chevy Chase, who's there at this little Dust Bowl town, and he's not playing his character that he is later. So it's sort of like The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy's friends are the farmhands, and then in the end of the film, she realizes that everybody she met in Oz were portrayed by those farmhands. So, like the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man.
Mhm.
And so the character played by Chevy Chase, the FBI guy, Well, he's there in that Dust Bowl town. So is the Duke and the Duchess.
Yeah, and just like The Wizard of Oz, the movie ends with all of us realizing that everything we'd just seen was a dream, maybe, of this first little person that we come in contact with.
Right.
And so yeah, they're trying to, you know, do a Wizard of Oz type thing there, and it kind of worked. Frankly, I forgot all about the beginning by the time you know this whole movie is going on, and I was a little thrown by, wait a minute, this whole thing was a dream, and because I just didn't remember the beginning, so it was kind of cute. But
now, what's interesting to note is the actor that played the first little person you meet in the movie, the character of Rollo. That actor's name is Cork Hubbard, and he played in several other films since then. Of course, always character type roles. So if we look back on his history, after he was in Under the Rainbow, he was in a bunch of TV appearances. He was on The Fall Guy and Magnum PI. He was also on the TV series. I don't know if you ever caught this in the 80s. There was a modern day version of Snow White called The Charmings.
mm-hmm.
And he also was later on in Drew Carey, Sabrina. Let's see here. I want to say there was one particular role, but I think that I'm confusing him with another actor. But he got quite a bit of work in television mostly after this film.
Mm-hmm. Matthew in the chat room says he loves The Charmings. Also, yes, why would anyone dream of Chevy Chase? I gotta tell you, Matt, Chevy Chase looks good in this movie. A part of it is the costuming. He looks really good in the period suits. He's very young, and he looks good. Yeah. DJ, why don't we play the 3-minute opening of the movie, the theme song, for a little 3-minute break so everyone can go potty, have a drink, refresh their beverages, and we will be back in exactly 3 minutes.
Okay.
Pardon me, bub, can you spare me the dime? I'm a little short-changed, otherwise I'm fine. Times are getting better, things are going my way, but I can use a cup of jive and jack to start my day. Things are looking up today, how could they be any other way? How am I flying? I'm flying high. This little guy ain't no small fry. Gonna pack my bags, gonna grab a half a pint, and I'll be in California by Saturday night. Life's a bowl of cherries if you throw away the pits, and a bowl of duck soup is just 2 bits. Things are looking up today. How could they be any other way? How am I flying? I'm flying high. Oh, this little guy ain't no small fry. So you better quit your jiving, Jack. Get off the tail. Hit the yellow brick road or hit the rails. Follow that rainbow. Follow the star. Cause the bigger the dream, the bigger you are. Yeah, the bigger the dream, the bigger you are.
95 to switch to our coast-to-coast network for the President's address. In today's headline, Hitler's army continues its relentless invasion of Austria, but the U.S. stock market continues its recovery despite the
No reply from Hollywood come yet?
Nope. Told you, they don't cast movies by mail. Face it, little fella, your dreams are just too big.
Well, let me tell you something, Delbert, and I want you to remember where you heard it. There's no dream too big. And no dreamer too small.
Reading them books again, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Just in time.
Friends and fellow Americans, again this week I have wonderful news about our economic recovery. But first, I am compelled to contrast our...
And I do believe we are back. Are you there, Mr. Smellie?
I am. Oops. Oh, I hear myself. DJ, that clip had the mention of a dream, and of course that's foreshadowing the fact that the rest of the movie is a dream, which is a little bit of the theme. DJ, let's get down and dirty into the trivia, shall we?
Okay. What would you like to know, sir?
Well, I've just got a whole lot of various pieces about the actors, the movie, and things like. For example, you know how Chevy Chase got his name?
Well, I know there's also a town by that name in Maryland, but I don't think he's named after it.
Yeah, I don't even think Chevy is his real name, but his grandmother gave him that nickname. Oh, his real name is Cornelius. I didn't know that.
I think I'd choose Chevy too.
Cornelius Crane Chase, born in Lower Manhattan, New York. Yeah, his mother was a concert pianist. Yeah.
You know, they say that the poster that came out for this film was a little controversial too, because some versions of it had a longer tagline.
Yeah.
You know, based on the somewhere over the rainbow, but this is under the rainbow, and it said somewhere under the rainbow, way down low, Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, and 150 midgets are fighting valiantly to save our country against all odds. Not odds. Yeah, they probably charged by the word, so I'm sure there weren't too many versions of that poster. I'd probably, grab them up too if I were Chevy and Carrie. I wouldn't want to be in a poster with that on it.
Yes, indeed. He did win Chevy Chase. He's the winner of a Harvard Lampoon Lifetime Achievement Award in 1996. Do you remember his little TV talk show, DJ?
Oh, there were a couple of turns at that, weren't there?
God, I hope not. I know of only one.
I know one that he did later on, and I want to say it was in the 90s. He had a Doritos commercial that he did as part of it.
Oh, yeah. Did you know he was almost electrocuted on the set of a movie?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was called Modern Prohibition in the same year.
Oh, no, Modern Problems. And
yeah.
And it starred Nell Carter.
Really?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. She was a voodoo priestess.
Well, somehow he was wearing some sort of lights, landing lights, and he's dreaming that he's an airplane, and the current in the lights short-circuited through his arm, back, and neck muscles. And they say it was a near-death experience.
Oh, wow. You know, we are looking over a very important debut that took place in this film. So it's sort of a forgettable film, but, go figure. I'd pick something like that.
No, you picked it because it has a soft spot in your heart.
Yes. Well, there is somebody who makes her first film appearance in this. I'll give you a hint, and you tell me if you know who the actress is. Walk into the light.
Well, I forget her name, but she was in Poltergeist.
Yes, Zelda Rubinstein made her film debut in this movie. She had a very small cameo part as one of the little persons that stayed at the Rainbow Hotel. And this was before she was in Poltergeist.
Yeah, you know what? I remember seeing her in the movie and thinking, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? And that's who it was.
And this movie got nominated for 2 Razzies.
Oops.
Those are the awards for the bad films. You got Worst Musical Score and Worst Supporting Actor. Sadly, the Worst Supporting Actor was listed as Billy Barty. I'm sorry. If you see Chevy Chase's film from before this, Foul Play, with Goldie Hawn, he plays a fairly lovable role. He's a Bible salesman that Goldie Hawn tries to stab to death with knitting needles.
Oh, Lord. I don't know if this is true or not, but Chevy Chase turned down the role of David Seville in, he turned down the lead role in Forrest Gump. Can you believe that? Am I reading the same bio?
Oh.
What the hell?
Well, I don't know that that was a bad turn down. I mean, I could take it or leave it. That's one of those films that I can, say that I was fine with watching it once.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Sinise is probably the best part of Forrest Gump. And I adore Sally Fields. She is everybody's favorite mother from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few more things to discuss before we move on. We got a slightly late start, so we'll wrap things up shortly here. But let's see. So some of the trivia here. Final film of makeup artist Fred B. Phillips was featured in Under the Rainbow. He had worked as an uncredited makeup artist on The Wizard of Oz. So there you go, another tie-in. We have Jerry Marin, who was in the original Wizard of Oz in 1939, and then Fred Phillips, makeup artist, who also worked on that film. So,
very good.
Do we want to go ahead and tease our next program there, sir?
Yeah, it's probably about time that we did that.
Okay, shall we get the coin out?
Yeah. First of all, get the magic coin. Alrighty, and we put it in the gumball machine. Yes, indeedy. And we just pull out this little, and we got a little piece of paper here. DJ, do the honors. What is the next movie that we're going to be doing?
Alrighty, folks. So we're going to take a step back. We're still stuck in the 80s a little bit, but we're going back a year to 1980. And this is going to be a very special episode of Matinee Minutiae. We're going to be doing it on the 21st in 2 weeks, Friday at 9 p.m. That's the Friday before the big holiday there. And it's also going to be the first episode with a special guest. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is a 1980 film adaptation of a well-known horror novel. It stars Shelley Duvall before she was Olive Oyl in Popeye. We also have Jack Nicholson after he was cuckoo, but before he'd messed with the witches. And it's set at a ski resort hotel during the dead of winter. This film was directed by the man who brought us 2001 and A Clockwork Orange. We're talking about The Shining!
There you go.
We'll have a Matinee Minutiae first. Our guest co-host will be Miss Brenda Boo, who I believe you are acquainted with, Mr. Smellie.
DJ?
Yes, sir.
I was reading the chat room and I totally wasn't focusing on what you said.
Oh, that's okay. So we are going to be featuring a Matinee Minutiae first. We will have a guest co-host, Miss Brenda Boo.
Yes, that's the person I know. Brenda and I do a podcast together called Lonsel. It'll be fun having her on. This was her choice, and I really was gobstruck. I was crestfallen. No, I was gobsmacked when Brenda chose this movie because I never would have guessed it, but she says she loves this movie. That's what we're doing next. DJ, Matt in the chat room just listed off a whole bunch of stories he wants to see. Romancing the Stone, Gremlins, Mannequin, A Christmas Story, Witches of Eastwick, It's a Wonderful Life. I think he was trying to guess what we were going to do. I think. And then he says, oh. So anyways.
Oh, well, you'll have to stay tuned to see what's coming down the pike here. So be sure to join us in 2 weeks at the same channel, same time. Fridays at 9 p.m. is our new home here at Univaz. So if there's nothing more ado, sir, let us bid a fond farewell to our guests.
Yes, we had in the chat room for a time Romo from Pod Cubs. We had your hubby, Billy. He was there, and with us the whole time has been Spanking B. Arthur. Matthew Burlingame from Chubb's Gone Wild.
Yes, and it should be noted that Pod Cubs is also live here on Univaz on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern. Drop by and enter the chat room to participate. Thank you, Matt, for joining us, and we will say our good nights here. Thanks for tuning in to Matinee Minutiae. Our show is live every other Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Stop by univazpods.net, click the tower for streaming audio, and enter Discord for chat. Follow us on Twitter at Matinee Minutiae. Have a comment, question, or a suggestion for a topic? Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com. And of course, you can visit our website at matineeminutia.com.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
univazpods.net. Okay, I am going to go ahead and disconnect from the stream now. Okay, and if someone will listen for me to make sure we return to the carousel.
All right, hang on. I got to get there.
Sure.
Do. It'll just take a second here. Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Your window flip around on you?
Yeah.
You haven't whipped that taskbar into shape just yet?
Not quite.
I've been whipping my evenings into shape with that bottle of libation you left behind in September.
Ah, that's right.
There have been some challenging evenings, but that sent me off on a nice nightcap. And are you still there, sir?
Yeah, I'm just listening to the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing the carousel of shows there.